Hello and welcome back to the Nutrition Digest podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Tara Valenti.
And I'm Summer Merrick.
It's just the two of us today. So we're basically doing like we're going to call it a bonus podcast for you guys because there's a new update that has happened in the nutrition world that we really want to dive into. There is a lot of buzz going on around the new Dietary Guidelines for Americans. And we just want to share our 2 cents because I think there's a lot of confusion going on and maybe some controversy too.
Indeed. It is definitely a buzz word right now. It's out and about. Tons of articles have already dropped, loads of things on social media. So we're once again here to help you cut through the noise and maybe understand a little bit more about why it's such a big topic right now, and how to kind of take it and apply it to your life. See what's important, what's not important, and also what may not be true or what is.
Yeah, exactly. And just so you know, the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, they get updated every 5 years, I want to say. So. We basically take all the scientific data and all the updated research and everything that we've learned, and then we compile it. I say we, I had nothing to do with it. I wish I did. But people, Department of Health and Human Services and the FDA basically compile all of that information and make some recommendations for Americans. It was done a little bit differently this time, which we'll get into in a moment here, but the new guidelines are causing quite a stir. So we're going to dive into that in a second. But first, I was thinking about dumb things to ask each other because I feel like that's what we do on the podcast is ask each other dumb things and share weird updates. And I was thinking about food that I've been super into lately because you know how you go through phases and there's like a thing where you'll just be like, dude, I'm super into this one thing right now and hooked on it.
What is it?
The Himalayan Gold Lesser Evil popcorn.
That stuff is so good. I love it.
It's actually like a drug. It's addicting. Like I can't stop eating it.
What flavor do you get?
It's their, like, it's in quotes, buttery flavor, but they use coconut oil instead of butter. And then like fake butter flavoring. I don't care. It tastes delicious. I got the Costco size bag, so I'm deep in it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've committed. I tried over the holidays. They had a marshmallow or something kind of flavor, something like that, or like a white chocolate marshmallow or something or another. And I usually don't go for the sweet, but I did this time. It was kind of like healthy without tasting too healthy. Lucky Charm marshmallows. Ooh. Far out, man. That stuff is crack in a bag.
Was it like salty sweet?
A little bit, yeah. And this, it wasn't too sweet. Like it could have been a little bit sweeter, but it was still pretty darn good.
Sounds like heroin.
It is. You know what? A weird thing that I started eating this week that I didn't even know I actually liked, and then a friend of mine had it. I got turned on to it, and I've eaten it almost every day. Like I feel like you're never gonna guess.
I don't know.
Egg salad. Isn't that weird?
That is a weird one. I actually really like egg salad.
It's so good. I didn't realize I liked it so much.
Yeah, on like white bread.
Oh, I've been putting it on salad.
Oh, like that's actually
the greens.
Yeah, that's delicious.
No, I would have. I just didn't have yummy white bread. But a friend of mine, we were out in Marin over the weekend, and that's just north of San Francisco for you guys who aren't in the Bay Area. And we were at this beautiful like shopping center. It was outdoors, but we went to this French cafe, and she had like this salad kind of mix, and it had egg salad on it. And I was like, that sounds good, but I never think about that because I never liked mayonnaise growing up. Oh my goodness. And then it turns out our local market, you can buy a container of it. It's fresh. Mm-hmm. I've been having it every day. Like with just mixed greens, tomatoes, a little bit of cucumber, a little crack of salt.
Now I want it. That sounds so good. My mom used to make it growing up. I think because it's just a cheap thing to make and easy. And I used to love an egg salad sandwich.
And it's a great way to get in some protein. You know, it's awesome.
Get in some protein, be happy, live your life. It tastes good.
It was good.
Don't eat it on the airplane.
No, it smells.
Yeah.
It smells.
Yeah. Or don't
be kind.
Next to someone you're trying to be attractive around.
Yeah. That's your public safety or public service announcement for the day. Don't eat egg salad on an airplane, and don't eat it around someone you're trying to impress.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, let's talk about the food pyramid. So the old food pyramid, I don't know if you guys remember from growing up, it was basically a triangle, point on top with the what foods you wanted to eat or consume in the smallest quantities. And then as you work your way down, it was the foods that you wanted to eat in the biggest quantities. And now, if you've noticed the new food pyramid, it's actually flip-flopped. So it has the foods that we eat the most, and the foods are different. So now at the top, we have our protein and full-fat dairy and those kind of foods at the top, whereas before the most consumed foods would have been like our grains. Tell us a little bit, Tara, about the old pyramid versus the new pyramid and, some of the interesting science about that and why it's weird that we're even comparing the two.
Yeah, I'll start with why it's weird. So I've been hearing all of this hype and so many headlines and all this stuff about the new dietary guidelines. It was even on the Tonight Show. Like everyone's talking about it because it's really mixing things up. And it seems like most people just have amnesia that there was something in between the old pyramid and the new one. It's called My Plate. We've been using it since 2011. That old pyramid has been considered obsolete and kind of useless for many, many years now. So comparing the old one to the new one, I guess it makes sense because humans are like, oh, we had a pyramid before. Now we have a new one. Let's compare them. But in reality, it's comparing them to something or comparing the new pyramid to something that we weren't using anyway. So like, what's the point of comparing that? There's not really much of a point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In My Plate, that became what we used. And what it did is it divided your plate. It was just a picture of a plate and it divided it up by the nutrients, our macronutrients. So it was proteins was about a quarter. Is that what it was? About a quarter.
In front of me.
Good.
So it was basically split into quarters. Half the plate, fruits and veggies, quarter protein, quarter grains. And then there's like a little cup on the side that says dairy. And that was what they used and what we have been using as just kind of like a really basic, simple, I would say oversimplified way of looking at here's about how your meals should be put together if you want to be focusing on balance. So strong emphasis on whole foods, fruits and vegetables, grains, and a protein source. That's nothing new. We've been doing that since before 2011 and definitely since 2011. The reason that we did a plate is because when you're trying to think about what should I eat today if I want to be eating healthy and taking care of myself, thinking about a pyramid is kind of not very practical. That's not what we eat.
Right. It's not common sense.
Right. Exactly. Where's the visual? Like, how do I actually apply this information? That's where the plate came in because it does make it more visual and a little bit easier to be strategic about what you actually put on your literal plate. So it was a pretty cool tool, not perfect, very simple, but there were guidelines, robust guidelines that went along with it to accompany the plate as a teaching tool.
So what is the new pyramid? Can you break that down for us? How does it work? What does it look like?
If you haven't seen the new pyramid yet, at the very top of the ad, I'll call it an ad because we're really advertising this new method. It says eat real food in really, really big letters. And the website's actually realfood.gov. So the whole emphasis is like real food, which I love. I think that's great. Let's not eat a bunch of over-processed junk. Let's focus on eating more whole foods in our diets. That's what everyone should really be doing. So I support that message. But then you look down at the actual pyramid and you have 3 labeled sections: protein, dairy, and healthy fats. And that's at the very top. So food to be getting most of your calories from. And right next to that is fruits and veggies. So those are the 2 primary emphases here: protein, dairy, healthy fats, fruits, and vegetables. One thing that I do really like is that they show frozen vegetables. They show canned vegetables. So if you are on a budget and you want to be having access to these other sources other than like super fresh stuff all the time, that is supported because that is a healthy way to get those into your diet. However, the protein, dairy, and healthy fats section strongly emphasizes foods that are rich sources of saturated fat and might not be the best foods to be consuming on a daily basis or multiple times a day. So there's a big old steak on there. There's some ground beef that's clearly red meat there.
That's what's in the tray.
Yeah, that's what's
I was
in the
just
tray.
staring at it and I could not figure. I assumed it was meatloaf, but I couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah, like what
ground
the hell
beef.
is this? Yeah, I had to like zoom in and I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're looking at here. Cheese. It looks like there's a rotisserie chicken or like a whole chicken there. There's a carton of milk that's very
Whole milk.
intentionally labeled. Yeah, whole milk. And then below all of those high saturated fat sources, there's salmon and eggs and yogurt and a can of tuna and some other seafood. Below that, there's nuts and seeds. I think I see what looks, I don't know what that is in the bowl. Do you know what that is? That's
I'm going to guess cottage cheese.
could be cottage cheese. Yeah. Because below that, at the very, very bottom, as though it's something like, it basically, so grains and bread replace what candy and sweets was in the very, very old food pyramid, which is kind of funny.
Well, it makes it seem like it's bad for you. So what it's indicating, or what the imagery is that these are things to avoid, that they're actually naughty foods. You know, they're the foods that we want to have very little. They're the questionable foods.
Yeah. Oh, better minimize oats, but butter, a big old stick of butter is above the oats. Like you should be getting more butter in your diet than oats, according to this new food pyramid. So obviously, no pun intended, but we have beef with that.
Oh,
Okay, so what's interesting here also is there's conflicting messaging. So I just described what the pyramid looks like. I'll link it in our show notes too, so you can take a look at the messaging here. When you go to the website to find the food pyramid and the Dietary Guideline for Americans, which you can download your own copy of, there's a little animation that pops up and it's red meat. It's a steak. It's whole milk, right?
whole milk.
Yeah, it's red meat, it's whole milk and broccoli. So it's like, these are the chosen foods that they wanted to emphasize the most. They were like, you know what? We better get people on whole milk, which we're going to dive into in a second here. We better get people on red meat, which we know excessive consumption of red meat is carcinogenic. So food for thought there. And then, we'll sprinkle in a little bit of broccoli because veggies. So the messaging is very direct. But when you actually go into the guidelines, and we've heard RFK Jr. say, I've watched these words come out of his mouth. He said, we are ending the war on saturated fats. I don't even know what that means, but when you actually look at the guidelines, Summer, tell me what the guidelines say about your saturated fat intake.
So it says that we should have no more than 10% of our daily intake of saturated fat. Now, that's the same as it was before, and that is a fact. We really want to aim for less than 10% of our daily food intake as saturated fat. Now, the problem with this food pyramid, and at least what the imagery is saying, by promoting red meat, whole milk, cheese, these are all foods that are, butter. These are all foods that are very high in saturated fat. So if you were to follow these guidelines, or at least the imagery on these guidelines as gospel, there's no way you're going to be able to keep it under 10% of your daily value. It's just not possible.
So how are Americans supposed to actually execute these recommendations? It seems like we're just being set up for failure here. Like, eat more red meat, eat more butter, eat more whole milk, full fat dairy, all of this. But if you actually started doing that on a daily basis, your saturated fat intake is going to go through the roof. And we know that excessive saturated fat intake regularly over a long period of time puts you at much higher risk for health complications down the line, particularly cardiovascular issues, atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, high triglycerides, all of these things that can be problematic for people. So we've got this 10% guideline that is essentially like, if you're just looking at the food pyramid, you would never imagine that that was what your target was. I mean, we Summer, like we give people saturated fat recommendations all the time. We watch them track their food. How easy is it for them to stay below that 10% target?
It's so hard.
Yeah, and I think from a logical standpoint, we talk about this in the dairy episode, which was, I don't remember which one's going to get released first. No, we just released a dairy episode actually this week. So dairy episode is out. So listen to that if you haven't listened to it yet, because dairy is a really interesting kind of like loophole. But part of it is just prioritizing fats that are known to have health benefits. And if you're going to be mindful of your total calorie intake, because energy in, energy out, guys, like we want to make sure things are balanced. We want to be nourished, but we also don't want to be overnourished. Prioritizing saturated fat as your primary source of fat in full fat dairy, in red meat, in things like that, in butter, whatever. Now we're eliminating sources of healthy mono and polyunsaturated fatty acids that we know actually give us health benefits. So we're choosing fats that we know are neutral at best, if not harmful when overconsumed, and we're eliminating fats that we know to actually be beneficial to our health. That seems really messed up. Like that seems very backwards to me, and not the right guidance for the entire American population.
And I will say, just as a caveat, is if you go deeper into these new guidelines, the verbiage is different. It's not necessarily aligned with with what the picture is saying. So it does speak to eating lean meats. It does speak to having a different variety, not all saturated fats, but healthy fats and things like that. But is the image, and that's what most people are going to see. Most people aren't going to take the time to read them all. It's a lot. So that's where, again, there's a discrepancy. You know, what's being advertised to the public is a little bit different than actually what's written down.
100%. When you actually read through the guidelines, I was like, cool, yeah, check. Okay, I agree with like almost all of this. It sounds pretty good. I'm not super upset about what the actual guidelines say. There isn't a ton of stuff that's red flagging to me. It's from like a healthcare standpoint, though, as providers, it's our job to share this information with people and help them use it to benefit their health, to guide their choices and stuff. And this makes it really difficult because we have to basically explain why the image doesn't match the text.
Right. And what were you saying? You saw it was the two images for healthy fats. What were they again?
Oh my God. Okay. So I was looking through all this stuff, and there's a lot of downloadable resources that you can find on the website. And there's one resource that is basically a daily serving sizes resource, and it has charts with different serving sizes of different foods. And they're broken down into categories. And I went down and I looked through all the categories and the examples. And under healthy fats, there's two examples of healthy fats.
Sorry, were those healthy fats?
Yeah, those were healthy fats.
Okay, so what were they again?
So there's olive oil. Okay. Approved. Healthy fat.
Yes.
The other example was butter.
What?
In what universe
is butter healthy?
Is butter under the category of a healthy fat? I spend so much time telling people to swap out butter for olive oil. Like, what about, it's just mind-boggling to me that they're just suddenly choosing to recategorize these foods as they please.
Right.
I have to say, part of it is the fact that the people in charge are not qualified to do this job. It's similar, in my opinion, to, and I might just decide to cut this out of the podcast because it's a little controversial, but it's similar to like all of these quote unquote nutritionists and wellness influencers that have no education and credentials telling people what to do with their lives and their health, except this is in our government and they're making actual policies and it's affecting Americans in a way that's supposed to be regulated by legitimate science. It's basically like the worst influencer who doesn't have the credentials or education to be making these recommendations, but they're actually being taken seriously.
They're recommending them to the entire nation. And not only to the nation, because these recommendations will go global as well, whether other countries adopt them. I mean, it is the US. And I mean, before recently, what we say often holds weight. Now, Not so much, but that's fair.
Okay, so I also want to talk about a few more things. There was a couple of other things that I wanted to highlight from what I saw, and one was some actual text that's in the Dietary Guidelines for Americans that I found to be just a little disturbing. And this wasn't in the area of saturated fat. I know we're harping on that a lot, but this was actually in the section on limiting highly processed foods, added sugars, and refined carbohydrates, which I love that statement. That's great. Let's limit those highly processed foods. We should all be limiting those. We should be watching out for how much added sugars we consume, and we should also be mindful of refined carbohydrates. But there is a section that says, while no amount of added sugars or non-nutritive sweeteners is recommended or considered part of a healthy or nutritious diet, one meal should contain no more than 10 grams of added sugars. Okay, that's a pretty standard recommendation, but the way that they phrase that to me just makes it seem like if you use any added sugars in any capacity, you're like a bad person.
Right.
like you're not healthy. I have been saying, and Summer, I know that you are totally on board with this and you say the exact same thing. Like we've been saying for ages that it's important to add these delicious sweet treats into our diet, to sprinkle them in periodically for the point of balance and sanity. Like we deserve to enjoy pleasure in life. Food is pleasurable, and we're going to have some added sugars in our lives because it tastes good.
Well, absolutely. And the other thing I tell my clients a lot, even in addition to enjoying yourself and enjoying foods that bring you joy, like ice cream, is that if you are a person who is trying to eat more, say, oatmeal or yogurt, but you can't stand the taste of unflavored oatmeal or plain yogurt, buy the sweetened kind. Have the sugar. Put stuff on it. Put the maple syrup. Put the brown sugar. Whatever it takes, because the benefits of having it are so good that it's okay to have a little bit of sugar. We don't live in a box.
Yes.
And like you said, we're not fucking robots. Like we do not live this life on this planet to never enjoy food, to never enjoy ourselves, to only be following a set of rules.
Exactly. I buy plain yogurt and I add maple syrup to it because it's freaking sour. Like I'm not just going to eat that with fruit on it and pretend that that is enjoyable. I know some people can do it. They don't mind it. It tastes good to them. I'm not one of those people. I put a little bit of sugar in there. Oh my gosh, that's added sugar. I'm going against the guidelines.
Like, you're probably going to die tonight.
I'm
just
probably
so you know.
going to get diabetes and immediately die. Like
as soon as you eat it, actually.
Actually, I probably already have it because I had that earlier today. So you know what? Yeah, RIP me because I'm out.
And I do buy the sweetened yogurt. I buy the Siggy's flavored yogurt. Also the vanilla kind has more protein in it. So I'd rather get a few extra grams of protein. It tastes better. I don't have to doctor it up. That's one less step I have to do. And I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be miserable.
That is one of the things that I thought of immediately when I was looking at the new pyramid. It specifically says unsweetened yogurt on the little picture of yogurt on there. I don't know anyone who's eating yogurt just like plain like that and enjoying it, unless it's like part of a yogurt dip or something, you know, that's like different. When you do like a savory yogurt, that's different. But if you're just eating yogurt as a treat, you're adding something to it or you're getting it sweetened. And what the hell is wrong with Siggy's? Like Siggy's is awesome. It's minimally sweetened. They use real sugar to sweeten it. Doesn't have any fake stuff in there. And vanilla bean, it's delicious. It's so good.
So good.
It's a great option. It's a high protein option. We should not be discouraging people from choosing these foods or making them feel bad about consuming these foods.
I think that's a really good point. It's the messaging. It's the fear mongering. It's the fear messaging. It's the negative messaging instead of positive messaging. When you promote something or advertise something as bad or you shouldn't do this, what ends up happening is you start breeding guilt. You start breeding this sense of failing, and even to some extreme can end up with some disordered eating patterns. Then you go on to maybe sugar-free stuff, thinking that that is good for you or better for you than foods that maybe have sweeteners in them. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've had clients where they are very, very proud of themselves because they're eating sugar-free candy as opposed to no candy at all, or fewer pieces of candy that actually have sweetener in it, Anyway, I just think that's not the right messaging that we want to send to the country.
Yeah, I agree. And it's confusing for people too, because we've heard things about artificial sweeteners not being great for us. There's a lot of fear around artificial sweeteners because of the recent, was it aspartame that just kind of came out where everyone is freaking out about diet
I think so, yeah.
again. Yeah. And people were like, oh my gosh, if you drink diet sodas, you're going to die. But there's fear around artificial sweeteners. Now there's fear around any type of real sweetener. It's like, I feel like people are just like, what can I do? I did also want to mention that there was an update in the protein recommendations that I fully support and really love. They increased the daily recommended protein amount. It used to be 0.8 grams per kilogram, which all dietitians were like, bro, that is not enough for anyone. But they updated it to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. And I was very pleased with that change. So see, we're not all bad over here.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, love the messaging using canned and frozen veggies, things like that. I think that's really good as well. So there is a lot of good stuff in there. There really is. And promoting that higher protein is fantastic. Promoting having fruits and vegetables be so much higher on the pyramid as almost equal to protein and dairy and that kind of stuff. I think that's all a really, really good positive visualization for this pyramid.
I mean, if we look at the bigger message and the overall takeaway, eat real food, minimize ultra processed stuff, all of that is really good. Prioritize protein, prioritize fruits and vegetables. This is stuff we've been saying for ages. And it's honestly not any different from the previous recommendations, except for that increased protein target, which like I said, is a good thing. It's the messaging and the conflicting messaging between the images and what's actually in the guidelines. The emphasis on saturated fat intake, which is just confusing, recategorizing butter as a healthy fat. There's just some problems here.
Right.
So we wanted to have an episode where we talked a little bit about these new guidelines, why they are being talked about so much, what some of the problems we see with them are. We also wanted to direct listeners to a resource that we believe will be very helpful if you are curious about digging a little bit deeper into the actual science that was supposed to be integrated into the guidelines. So there's a committee of, basically it's a panel of experts that collects all of the data and all of the science about the nutrition that is supposed to guide the guidelines and the recommendations. We know that a lot of that science was not considered and it wasn't implemented in creating the new guidelines. So there's actually a document that was put out by the Center for Science in the Public Interest that is called the Uncompromised DGA, or the Uncompromised Dietary Guidelines for Americans. And it is the literal uncompromised guidelines with the actual science that was supposed to go into the current guidelines that were released. So there are some differences between what was released and what the uncompromised version has in it. I will link that in the show notes so that you can access that and take a look at it if you're interested.
Can I just go ahead and read that very first statement from this document? And again, this is a panel of experts in this field. This is what the dietary guidelines are supposed to be based off of. But the first sentence, and I am going to read it, says, in an unprecedented move, the Trump administration has now published a 2025 to 2030 dietary guidelines for Americans that is insufficient to guide federal policy and diverges from the science-based recommendations of the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee. So, just to show you right there, unfortunately, the information that has been published is considered insufficient, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's that really says something for this group of scientists who are tasked with this. And this is how it works. Every 5 years, we have a panel of experts. They share their information with HHS. They share their information with the FDA. And that's where we come up with the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. For that panel of experts to actually stand up and say, we don't agree with this. This is not what the science says. I mean, that's pretty powerful. So something to take into consideration when you're making choices. And as always, if you want nutrition advice, a dietitian is a really great resource. We are experts in this field. We do know our stuff. And if you're confused about any of this stuff or what targets you should be aiming for as an individual, it is really individually based. And that's part of what's difficult about creating guidelines for an entire country. So getting one-on-one advice is always much better than following generic advice from Dietary Guidelines for America. But of course, we felt it was our responsibility to talk a little bit about it today.
Yep.
Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. So the food pyramid, it's not all wrong, but it is incomplete. Nutrition isn't about putting one macronutrient on top of another. It's about balance, context, and food quality, and healthy eating over time. So if you like this episode, please feel free to share it with your friends or anybody else who you think would get any benefit from it. Also, if you have any questions or would like to work with us, please send us an email at nutritiondigestpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram. Remember, you can listen to our podcast not only on Spotify, but also Apple Podcasts, and you can watch us on YouTube. And until next time, stay healthy, stay informed, do your research, and we will talk to you soon.